Hi TBN family, welcome to TBN Meets. My guest today is the CEO of the Pentecostal Credit Union, which is one of the oldest and one of the largest credit unions in the country today. It has over 35 years history. Their sole purpose is to improve the economic lives of its members. Shane Bowes, welcome to TBN Meets.
Hello, Leon.
So it's so good to see you again. We met a couple of months ago and we were really excited about what you guys are doing. Also just how it serves the church.
Yes.
And so we're here to talk about that today.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's a lot of Pentecostal viewers watching that'll get excited about the services that you offer.
Yes.
So let's maybe start. Give us your testimony maybe in 60 seconds. What's your history? What's your story?
Okay, so the Pentecostal Credit Union is a loans and savings cooperative which provides financial services to members of Great Britain's Pentecostal church community, offering savings and loans facilities. It was founded in 1979 by Reverend Carmel Jones and his wife, Mrs. Ivelyn Jones, and 16 Christian friends who, generally speaking, had become concerned with some of the issues around financial exclusion that had affected the Windrush generation.
Right. Credit union, a lot of people would be confused by it, you know, with modern banking and everything else. What is a credit union?
So a credit union is a savings and loans cooperative. So it provides financial services such as loans and savings. The main difference between a credit union and a bank is that a credit union is a member-owned organisation. So unlike a bank, which is owned by a small group of shareholders, a credit union is owned by the members or the people that use it. A credit union is what we call a not-for-profit organisation. That's not to be confused with a non-profit organisation such as a charity. Right. But its sole purpose is to provide good services at low cost.
But you have a very colourful history. I mean, you told me the previous time we met how it was founded, how it was started. Tell us that story again.
Okay, so Reverend Jones actually describes in his autobiography about the vision that he had, about having a vision of being able to provide financial services for Britain's Pentecostal community.
When was this?
This was in 1979.
That's 30 years ago.
Yes, and he saw an advert in the Sun newspaper about starting a credit union. Right. And he applied for the rule book and paid the £1.20 it was, and then he prayed on it for some time before starting it, and he got the support of his local bishop and launched it in his front room.
Wow. Tell us about what's the scope and the size today?
So the Pentecostal Credit Union has a savings portfolio of 8 million and loans of 5.8 million, wow. And it has assets of 10.5 million.
My goodness. And that started from someone's living room?
Yes.
Wow. And over 30 years ago. And God just increased it and increased it. So your role in the company, you've had quite a journey through the company to your current role as CEO. Yes. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I started at the credit union as a volunteer after graduating from university. So I was simply looking for some work experience because I had a job at prison service headquarters. But while they were looking for a placement, I had nothing to do for several months. So I came to the credit union just to get a bit of work experience, you know, end up making the tea, doing the filing and listening in on meetings and things like that. And it was from then that I really developed a passion for the credit union. So when the placement eventually came, I turned it down and was offered a trainee manager's position at the credit union.
So good. So you know the kitchen, the front house, you know, the storerooms, you know everything in the company.
That's right.
That's amazing for a CEO to be so hands-on and have come through the entire system, because you really understand the heartbeat of the company when you help build it from scratch. So tell us about the impact this journey has had on your life.
Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I mean, one of the great benefits of having been in the credit union for so many years is that I managed to be apprenticed by Reverend Jones, which is basically the best apprenticeship that you can actually have, because he taught me everything that there was to know about the credit union, about any trade secrets, you know, how the credit union runs. And one thing I was looking for when I graduated from university was a graduate program. But this, has surpassed, anything that I could ever have wished for.
So one would think, well, the Pentecostal credit union, some people might think it has a traditional twang to it. You know what I mean? How does it keep abreast with modern banking technologies and systems and infrastructure?
Well, one thing that we've done is to co-opt some people with some market expertise in these areas. So we have somebody that looks after our social media and technology. We've also enlisted the professional help of trade bodies and back office systems that help us to develop the programs and systems that we need to work on. The board of directors have also enlisted the help of professional marketeers. So we've done a lot of market research in terms of the types of services that our existing members want, and also marketed the people who don't use our services and try to figure out the reasons why they don't want to use them. And with that information, that helps us then to develop the products that we currently are offering.
All right. And you currently have your website, your new revamped website you're busy with, and speak to us a little bit about some new products coming out.
Okay, so as I was mentioning earlier about some of the market research that we undertook a couple of years ago, as a result of that, one thing that we noticed was that over 50% of our current members are over the age of 55.
Right.
Now, that tells us a lot about the longevity of the business. We know where it came from and the people that supported it, but if it's going to be sustainable in the long run, then we need to enlist the support of the younger generation. They have different spending habits and different needs. So as a result of that, that type of sector interact with us in different ways. They want their products and services at their fingertips. They're not willing to come into the office to interact. So as a result of that, we've got an interactive website, which we've just launched, and we're also developing a mobile app and a debit card as well, so that people can go out and spend money online.
So take us through the whole process of membership, and how do you reinvest that money? How does it occur? Interest and everything else. Speak to us about that.
Okay, so the general business model is that anybody that saves money in a credit union, it's saved in a pool. And from that pool, the money is then lent out to other members at various differing interest rates.
And you reinvest that money in different property portfolios, etc.?
Well, we reinvest that money, any surplus money, because, the best way of getting a return on that investment is through the interest that members will pay on loans. But any surplus that we cannot lend to other members is then saved in what they call a secure vehicle. So the Financial Conduct Authority have strict rules about how we can invest members' money. So it can't be in property, it can't be anything that is where the principal of that money can be lost.
Right.
So we can invest it in government bonds and long-term savings accounts.
Okay. What's the impact that this credit union's had on people's lives? Tell me some of the amazing stories and the testimonies that just come.
Well, there are too many to mention, but some of the highlights from the credit unions, almost 40 years in existence, is the fact that it's managed to purchase over 19 buildings for churches that couldn't get loans from commercial banks.
And this goes back right to the history when it started, because the original founder couldn't get a loan for his own church.
That's right, yeah. So it wasn't until the mid-90s when the credit union actually began to make loans to churches themselves.
Right.
But since the mid-90s, the credit union has managed to purchase 19 buildings for church groups. In addition to that, one of the churches that the credit union helped to buy their own buildings was Tabernacle Christian Centre, which has been widely lauded for the help that they offered to the victims of the Grenfell fire.
That's right.
So the impact that the credit union has had, cannot be underestimated.
So good. And maybe more on a one-to-one basis. Tell us about those individual stories.
Yeah, so we've saved numerous individuals from homelessness when banks and other financial institutions were looking to repossess their properties. We've come in at the last minute to help people keep their homes. We've helped people call for relatives from abroad, people who have lost relatives abroad, help them to travel, put people through university, and many good news stories.
So, as a credit union, a Pentecostal credit union, obviously everything is underpinned with kingdom values and principles. All the members need to be Pentecostal, I would imagine.
Well, they need to be able to demonstrate an affiliation to a Pentecostal church. So they don't necessarily need to take a right hand of fellowship or be a member, but they do need to demonstrate that they go to a Pentecostal church.
How do they do that?
So on the application form, it asks them to state which church they go to. We can then do some due diligence to ensure that they go or have been recently.
Very good. So, what do you do as far as educating people about good money habits?
Okay, so what would the credit union have done is to undertake several new initiatives around financial education. So one of those things that we did was to launch what we've called the MoneyWise Business Development Program, which is a program to help members who may have a business idea or a concept, but it hasn't yet come to fruition as yet. So we've enlisted the help of some experts to teach those people about the essentials of running a successful business, because one of the things that's distinguishes a credit union from a bank is its commitment to financial education. So how we've interpreted that is to help people to launch businesses, because in any society, an important litmus test as to the success of that society is its level of entrepreneurship. So if we can encourage our members to become more entrepreneurial, then it will have an impact on the wider society. In addition to that, we've also developed MoneyWise programs, which are about teaching people the fundamentals of budgeting and savings. But what our programs differ to other organisations, that has a biblical underpinning, biblical principles. So we know that King Solomon, for example, is the ultimate money-wise king. Money wisdom really is biblical. It goes back thousands of years. So many charities are now coming onto this idea in the last few years. But for us, it's something that has been going on for a long time.
Well, it was the very principle you were called, into being ultimately almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell us about the advice you give or the support you give to new businesses launching.
Well, one thing that we encourage all new businesses and all new members to do is to save regularly, to get into the habit of saving, because you never know when you may need to rely on those funds, in a rainy day. One thing that anyone that has applied for a loan, whether they be an individual or a corporate, will know that if you're turned away for a loan from a bank, the bank will simply say, computer says no. There's no appeals process. If you try to engage them in a conversation, they'll just say, go and check your credit score. In the credit union, we're a little bit different. So if we ever have to reject a person for a loan, we will say to them, save for a little bit. Demonstrate that you can save for a short period of time, and then we can come back. If you've applied for a loan, say for £5,000, we can't do 5,000, then we may encourage them to take 2,500 and see how they go with their repayments. And if they are very good with that, then give them the remaining 2,500.
Speak to us about your services and products. So if you make loans, speak to us, what's the maximum loan, minimum loan? Give us a bit of the spread.
Okay, so the law allows us to make a maximum loan of 1.5% of our total shareholding. Right. So for ease of understanding, at the moment, that's about 120,000. So we can make a maximum loan to any individual for up to 120,000.
And a church, organisation as well, an individual or a church?
Yes, or a church. Currently, we are oversubscribed in terms of the number of church loans that we can give, because the law only allows us to make 10% of our portfolio to churches.
Right.
So we're currently at around 12%. So once that comes down to the regulatory maximum, we'll be able to then begin lending again.
Do that again. But individuals, individuals can approach you for loans at the moment?
Yes.
You're open for business?
Absolutely.
People watching this thinking, well, I just don't have enough money. Money is so tight. I just don't have a means to save. Give them some tips. Help them understand how to look at their finances differently. Because, every penny goes somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, there are various reports at the moment in the media that how, you know, the national debt has reached unprecedented levels.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're surrounded by images in media and social media about instant gratification. You know, everybody wants to get on the property market, everybody wants to drive a nice car and wear nice clothes. But we're not really inculcated with the same messages around saving.
Okay.
And one of the messages that we encourage all people to do is to get into the habit of saving. You know, a loan is not always in everybody's interests, but you never know when you may need to rely on your savings.
Well, speak to us about educating children, because that's such a big part of ensuring that next generation is well informed and well equipped. You know, what do you do in that space?
Well, we're very conscious about the impact that young people can have. And I mentioned earlier about the issue that we found through segmentation that the majority of our members were over 55. Now, because we are concerned about the succession planning in this organisation, we've done several things. The first thing that we did is to create a youth shadow board, which acts as a board that sits alongside the main board of directors. They don't have any formal powers, but they make suggestions about the types of goods and services that they would like to see as young people. The Youth Shadow Board also acts as a form of succession because we hope to see those young people as the directors and senior managers in our organisation in the future. Also teaches them the soft skills that maybe they're not getting in the national curriculum around citizenship, you know, around governance and these other sorts of soft skills. And then we've also developed what we call a Create Amazing program for these young people. And that's about exposing them to work experience in some of the big organisations. So last year, a lot of them went over to Google and had a day out there and were mentored in the types of skills that they will need to develop if they want to go into that type of industry.
So good. Faith in your organisation plays a huge role, of course. Explain that to us.
Well,
how does it form part of your policies and your day-to-day running and in the boardroom and in decision-making? Because how do you separate someone applying for a loan who might not be in the best position, but God says, give her a loan?
Well,
how do you separate those?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting contrast. Because, you know, by definition, we are the Pentecostal credit union, and our very being is about helping members,
serving
people in the Pentecostal faith. But I mean, in terms of our day-to-day existence, you know, each board meeting opens in prayer and closes in prayer. You know, the people that we work with are people such as ourselves who are in the faith. It is, I mean, one thing that distinguishes this credit union from others is one of faith, you know, via the common bond. So every credit union in the country has a common bond, which generally is around live or work. So depending on the work organisation that you work in or where you live, determines your eligibility to join that credit union. So when people come to the credit union, Pentecostal, they are on the understanding that we are a faith-orientated organisation.
Well, working in that space, you would have seen amazing things that God would have done. Even corporately, you know, because businesses, banks go through challenges as, you know, as people go through recessions or as world economics go through recessions. Speak to us a little bit about that, how you've seen God move, even in your own organisation. Well, the organisation has had some challenges over the years, some regulatory challenges, and there have been people who'd like to have seen it closed down. But God works in mysterious ways. And it was clear in many of these instances that the credit union was to survive. And one of the reasons why the credit union was able to survive is its exceptionally strong fiscal position. It has one of the highest capital to assets ratios in the country. And if it wasn't for that reason, the credit union might not be here today. And it was through the lending to churches and to individuals, and the fact that they pay back so regularly, and the fact that they are so committed, which is why the credit union is still here. Do you think Christians are better lenders than normal secular people? Let me
I
put
think
you on
we
the
are.
spot a little bit.
I think we are, and I certainly think that we are better for being Christian lenders than we otherwise would be if we were not, and that enables us to see empathy with people, not just to see them as a statistic, and to turn them away at the door when they have need.
And the clients as well. Do you think Christian people who make loans, who apply for loans, are better clients than normal secular clients?
Well, our bad debt ratio is lower, significantly lower, than any of the 10 largest credit unions. And there is a reason for that. And that is because when people borrow from us, they know that they have a Christian obligation to repay their loans. And in the main, they do. Of course, there are a few errant people that don't always pay, but in the main, it is because they cannot pay rather than because they won't pay.
Well, I think, I agree, I think that generally speaking, I mean, this is, generally speaking, Christians would be, people who are God-fearing, God-loving people, good husbands, good fathers, generally speaking, and I think that the type of client is a lower risk. We've certainly seen it in the American insurance industry, where you have Christian insurance entities, businesses, where those clients having to be evangelical, charismatic, Pentecostal, in order to have membership, the risk portfolio is lower and seen by the international or by the federal insurance authorities.
Right.
So it's interesting to understand in this field as well, in the financial field, in that space, that is also true. Generally speaking, of course,
Yes.
And of course, we know the people who don't repay, that God's wrath will come down on them. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Please don't write in. Please don't write into TBN when I say that. No. So, what's the vision for the future? Well, what is the big dream? What is everyone in the organization focused on working towards?
Okay, well, my vision and the vision shared by the board is that the Pentecostal Credit Union becomes the financial service provider of choice for the Pentecostal faith community in this country. And we're currently, improving the infrastructure to make that a reality. So, as I said earlier about the upscaling the products and services to make it easier for people to join, easier for them to handle their financial affairs.
That's so good. So for people who want to find out more information, where do they go?
The best place to go is to visit the website at www.pcuuk.com. All the information about the credit union is there. For any information, if you'd like to speak to me or a member of my team, you can give us a call on 0208 673 2542.
2542. Final thoughts. We're about to wrap. We've got a minute left. Give us your final thoughts.
Well, the credit union is here for business, and we want to appeal to everybody within the Pentecostal church fraternity to visit us, to engage with us. We're here for the empowerment of our community, but we can't do this without the support of the churches throughout Great Britain. And I'm calling out to everybody to engage with us.
Well, family, this is certainly a great company, a great organization that we wanted you to know of and know about their services. And if the Lord moves on your heart and this is something you want to get involved with, please do so. Shane, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Keep up the great work you guys are doing. You're blessing so many people and bringing freedom to so many people through this amazing organization that's almost 40 years old. So we just pray God's continued blessing on your organization, and may many, many lives be touched and changed through your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time. As always, it's been a pleasure. And remember that you are blessed and highly favored. Goodbye.